artificial intelligence,
He's an AI consultant. He's founder of Blintic AI and Algan Tech. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Amit Timalsina.
So I usually give these talks online, so that's the way of checking it. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this event. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you so much, Dai, for putting this all together. Very excited to be speaking today. I'm going to be talking about how did we build a production-ready AI system at a scale that I was fortunately able to be part of. And I'll share how did we go from POC all the way to production, and how things change, how you manage cost, and how you actually build things for production with AI, which is a little new thing, at least for now. A little about me. I started working with AI around 16. I was coding even before that. I've been working in this industry for the last 5 years, Nepal, Bangalore. So it's been 2 countries so far, remotely in US. I'm currently an AI consultant at Leapfrog. I'm also co-founder of a company called Peaceline AI. At Peaceline AI, we help increase the conversions of your website by putting a voice AI agent, which can show real-time demos to your potential customers and help with conversion of SQLs, MQLs, and stuff like that. Previously, I also built this company called Blintic AI. So I was a solopreneur there. It's a no-code customer support chatbot builder. Before that, I was at Doximo. So Doximo is a document AI company out of Nepal. And I think a lot of my knowledge of building AI systems comes from there. Thank you so much for that team. And then I was also at Niru, which is a Bangalore-based startup where we built multi-agentic RAG applications for personal finance. It was a B2C company. Cool. Let's go into what we're talking about today. So let's start with what are clinical trials, right? Clinical trials are how we test if treatments actually work. Every medication, every treatment, vaccine, COVID, cancer treatments, everything has to go through these trials before it reaches all of us. Today, there are so many active trials, costs a lot of money to make them happen, and then it takes a long amount of time for them to be approved as well. That is cool, but what is the problem here, right? This has happened since ages, and what can be changed today? The problem is protocols are designed blind. So sponsors who are funding these trials, these are big pharma companies that are funding these trials, they can only look at their own past data, and they can only look at a limited set of public data sets. Another thing is, there's no data-driven way of doing this. How do you improve if you don't have a data-driven way of improving your systems, improving trial designs? How do you do that? Not possible. It was not very, very possible previously, because this was unstructured data hidden in PDFs. What changed? LLMs happened. They are very good at understanding text and giving us structured output. So why not capitalize on that? So what happens when you design blind? You have too many exclusion criteria. So what does that mean is, whenever you are designing trials, you have a criteria for the patients that you are creating this drug for. And then in that, you have inclusion criteria, and then you have exclusion criteria. So exclusion criteria is who you don't include. Maybe you don't want to include a smoker. You want non-smokers. So that's how you define that. If it's too much, you cannot find eligible patients. It becomes very hard to do recruitment. Too many site visits. If the patients have to visit the site so many times unnecessarily, then it's a lot of burden on the patients, as well as the research sites where this monitoring, where the drugs are being administered or your vitals are being taken. Design flaws discovered late. So what happens is, you design the trial beforehand, and then it goes through the trial, and then you find a flaw. Like, what do you do then, right? If you spend so much money and you found the flaw at the end, then you have to redo some things. A lot of statistical methods have to change. How do you make the FDA approve your drug? You try to minimize the mistakes. Mistakes happen, but can we minimize them? We saw one example from client before we started, which was we benchmarked one sponsor's protocol against comparable historical data, and we found 2 times more exclusion criteria than actually needed. Let's not call it needed, based on historical data of similar industry. 60% more site visits. Okay, this is the problem statement we are trying to solve. So let's see. So what we built and why it matters. We structured 140,000 plus clinical trials. The way we structured this is we defined what information matters for these decision makers, the people who are designing the trials, what matters to them. We sat with them. We defined 79 entity types. And all of these entity types have their own schema, or defined schema, JSON schema, pydantic schema, whatever you understand. So the data we covered was diverse trial types, diverse types of medicines, therapeutic areas, and a lot of sponsors. So the aim is that the intelligence that is locked in PDFs now is searchable, queryable, analyzable. So what does it enable? You can benchmark any new protocol. How many accident criteria do similar phase 2 oncology trials have? You can do better design choices that lead to less amendments. You can optimize visit schedules. So can we decrease the visit schedule by like 2 times, 2 days? Like out of 10, let's make it 8. That is a lot of less burden on the patients, a lot less burden on the research sites, and money saved. How do we improve the enrollment? Can we have better eligibility criteria? The outcome is sponsors can design better trials, more feasible trials. Better design trials reach treatments. Better design trials means treatments reach patients sooner. A trial that used to take 12 years now takes 8 years, and that's the goal. It still hasn't happened. It's still in production. It will take some time to get the results, but that is the goal. Now, what are clinical trials in my eyes? When I say my eyes, in the eyes of an engineer, eyes of an AI engineer, right? This is how I approach my problems. I look at the data. I look at a lot of data. So I went, I think, like 1,000 documents over a span of weeks. I looked at them. It's still a new industry for me, okay? I don't understand trials. So I'm looking at them for the first time. So I go and start reading trials, right? What are they? For me, they are long documents, very, very long, longer than I had ever worked. There are hierarchical sections. This is going to be important. I see there's some pattern. Even though sponsors are different, they are following some sort of pattern. So there's some structure that I see, which is very important. Then I see complex tables. Okay, this is not just a bunch of text. There are very, very complicated tables. Then I see a lot of different formatting types. It's not very, very same. It's different. Okay. I see digital PDFs, so I don't need OCR. That's good. One less problem. Okay, I thought it would be more clear, but let's try to understand. So this is one of the table of contents. Okay? If you see here, this structure here, you will see that there's some hierarchy. This introduction, the next section, section inside section, section inside section, section. So 3 levels of hierarchy I see here. Same thing is repeating here. Same thing is repeating here. Okay. Does it repeat across documents? Oh yeah, it actually repeats across documents. That's pretty interesting. Then I start looking at tables. Okay, how complicated are these tables, right? Let's try to, let's see if you can LLM prompt and get these tables, right? So I look at tables. Oh no, that's a long table. So many columns, so many merged cells, and this table spans multiple pages. Wow, and so many formats. Wow. Okay, okay. This is going to be fun, right? It's going to be fun. Another one is a little different. Okay, I see some similarities, but a little different. Okay, I'll not bore you with so many images I saw, but cool. So this is our problem. We have to structure clinical trials. We understand why. Now let's do it. And the beautiful thing about this project was it was a US client, had so much money, so much data. Wow, like dream, right? So this was we processed 140,000 documents by the end of it. We spent a lot of money. For us, it's a lot of money. For them, it was not. It took 9 months, and we solved the problem at $2 per document. Very, very cheap, actually. They were happy with 10, but I wanted to save money. So how do you start, right? You don't over-engineer systems from the beginning. I don't like to do that. I like to keep it simple. You have to first define the entities, because if you don't define what you are going to extract, then you extract the wrong thing. So you talk with domain experts for weeks, and then you define the entities. We have 79 entities. We have nailed down exact things we want from the 79 entities for 100 documents. We start from there. We have annotated 100 documents. We have finalized entities. Great. Now, let's try to automate it. The first approach is we have PDFs. Let's use PyMePDF. PyMePDF is an open source package. Let's use it to get text. And what are we going to do is we are going to send all of this text and send this complicated schema, which is pydantic in our case, and then let's extract, right? Why not start there? What are the problems? You exceed LLM max tokens per input. You have very, very high latency. because so much output tokens need to be returned. You have very, very, very poor accuracy, and then it is not reliable. JSON validation error due to complexity of entity schema and max output tokens limit. Even though input tokens are very, very huge, output tokens are still limited. Cool, cool. I'll not show you the phases we went through to come to this architecture finally, but it was a long 4-5 months of R&D to come to this. But this is what worked for us. This is our final architecture, pretty simple. Stage 1, layout parsing. So many data to extract, and for individual entities, I see that I don't need entire document for one entity, right? Can I parse the layout in a way that makes it feasible for me to get targeted information for each entity? So I do layout parsing for that. I do table extraction. I don't frame tables. I will frame tables differently because it's a different problem. I tried LLMs. We landed with table transformer. And then I'll do finally entity extraction. I'll use LLMs for that, obviously. I'll give that to as JSONs. I'll add it to Snowflake, and hooray, we have analytics. Cool. Let's talk about layout parsing. We have PDFs. We use Pime PDF for individual page level text. We don't need OCR because it's digital PDF. Now, we want to preserve the layout of the document. As we saw originally, there is some structure there, right? There's some hierarchy I see. There are section names, there are subsection names, and a bunch of text in between. Cool. I'm going to use LLM to identify section headers, because what I see is I also see section names repeating across these different sponsor formats. So I think I can standardize this. I think even though trials are very, very different, there's some similarity to them. So I'm going to standardize them. I'm going to identify section headers. I'm going to identify hierarchy levels. And then using that, I'm going to create a document tree. So now I have a document tree where I can query individual sections, subsections, and get text out of them. Because once I know section names and exact text, I can find text in between, and that is the text for that section. We'll talk a little bit more on that, how technical that happens. Why layout parsing? Sorry. This is going to be used in entity extraction to provide optimal PDF context per entity. This helps in not exceeding input tokens limit, increasing accuracy, decreasing latency, saving cost. Why LLM for section detection? You said you saw some patterns, right? Why not use something like regex? We tried. If regex was, I think if we worked harder, we could make regex work at least for 90% of our documents. And the scale that we're testing this was like 100 documents. We're starting with 100 documents. So if it's not working for 30% of my documents, this scale, I'm troubled because I have to run this on a huge amount of data later on, right? So that is the reason why I didn't use LLM for section detection. And then cross-page merging. Sections don't just live in one page, they span across pages. The original method that we tried was, whenever we did section extraction, we used to keep on sending the entire, so we start with first page, you get some schema, you go to second page, you include the first page schema as well, and then you give the second page, and it was like a linear fashion, but one thing we saw was, here, let's do this parallelly or asynchronously, and then merge them at the end. And it worked, because what used to happen is if a section spans across pages, and it goes to the next page, the next page has its own sections, and the text that is orphan can actually merge back to the previous page. So you don't need to keep on sending the previous page as well, at least in our case. So how did we do section extraction? The schema that we were looking for was page structure. So if you see, page structure has sections and flag. Sections has this schema of list of section. And if we look at an individual section, it has title, label, and its own children. Okay, it's a cyclic in nature in here. Label is, if it was 1 point, it is level 1. If it's 1.1, it's level 2. 1.1, 1.1.1. I think we saw till 5 levels. So that's level, then we have children's. And then inside page structure, we also have flags. So these flags tells us, because we have like 79 entities, but we are using a powerful LLM, decently powerful LLM, 3.5 Sonnet at this point. Can we do one more thing with this LLM? Can we also do classification with this LLM? So what we did is we added entity presence flag. So for a lot of entities we had, I think for 20, I think around 30, 40 entities, which were hard to find, we said, here, why doesn't the LLM tell us individual? It's going through all the pages, right? Let's use it for one more thing. At the same time, let's let it tell us if inclusion criteria is in this space, if study and objectives is in this space. We evaluated, and it worked out well. So one LLM call gave us two things, structure preservation, as well as some sort of classification. So entity presence flags is that it tracks what page has what, tells stage 3 which sections to process for each entity. This is very important, because now I know which pages have what entities. For some entities, I can directly do regex matching as well, but for some entities, I know now from individual pages what information is present there. For this, we use instructor plus light LLM. This is my usually favorite thing to go. Instructor enforces identity schema across model types we're using. Today, I think we have structured output. OpenAI supports them. Claude also has it in beta, I think. But that time, we didn't have default support. We could do it through tool calling. But if instructor does this under the hood, why not use them? I love using instructor. It also auto-retries on validation failure. Then we have light LLM, which handles rate limit across multiple models that we're using. So perfect combination for us. And then we're doing file-based caching per piece, so that even if it failed and we reran, we're not running on the entire document, we're running on the pages that it failed. Now we go to table extraction. We tried LLMs first, why don't, right? It's like Genie. If I tell it, it might just work out, right? So we tried LLMs first. They failed. The best accuracy that we got with vision models that we were at the time was around 80%. This is like a rounded off number so that I don't complicate it. But near to that, problems we saw was hallucinated columns. It was a lot of text that LLM has to preserve. We tried two approaches. One was markdown. Here, let's ask if LLM can give us markdown. Another one was three approaches, actually. Another was HTML or XML tags. Can I give it or ask it to write HTML code and like write table code? And then the third approach that I tried was pydantic schema again. Can I represent this complicated table in a pydantic schema? We tried all three approaches, and it just was not working. It was unable to do reliably across documents. So then I come from Doximo, right? So we had done this, right? At Doximo, we were still doing document processing before LLMs. And how did you do it? For tables, we used to use table transformer, right? Why not try the same thing here, right? Microsoft open source it, why not use it? So we started playing with it. We come from the background, so it was not hard for us. So we started using table transformer. Now the main reason why people don't use previous generation of models, as we call it today, is that unit training data. Okay, we have so much money. I think we can annotate a few, right? But let's save money, right? Why not? So we did synthetic training data. I love doing synthetic data, at least for some cases. And in this case, it made sense because even though the documents' natures, they are different formatting, but at the end, it's clinical trials, right? How different are they? There's some similarities, right? Cool. SOA is short form for schedule of activities or these tables that I'm talking about. They follow patterns. Once you encode those patterns, you can generate unlimited training data. So now I'm not limited by how many data that annotation team annotates. Now, if I generate synthetic data, I have unlimited data. I can just keep on generating them as I need to. But they can overfit. So let's try to add some randomization. Let's try to do that. So let's make the images skewed. Let's make them hard so that the LLM generalizes as well. And then let's try to write code manually or ask LLM to write code for us to create different types of table variations by going through so many sponsors, essentially. So it's very simple. You write this function called generate synthetic data, which knows the tables. You write this for individual table formats. Then you convert that data to PDF. You can do that. And then you create COCO annotations. So the COCO annotations is a format that table transformer uses. So now you have it. I have the PDF. So I have images of the pages. And I have the annotation. I don't need humans, at least for annotation. So that is how we do it. Now this is what we needed, right? All this that we have gone through is for this. We finally reached here. We have 79 entities. I have mentioned a few names here. No need to be troubled by those names. These are just fields that we need to extract. One thing I again see is this pattern. Some entities depend on other entities. Okay, so what does that mean? So what does this mean is, if I am extracting something for one entity and there's a derived entity downstream, why not I have a dependency graph? So I create a graph where we have the top level nodes and then subsequent nodes. and the below nodes depend on the upper nodes. So I'll start by executing the higher level. We get extraction for them, and if it's a derived field, I'll just give that as a context to a derived field, and it will just do work on that extraction from the first node. So that saves me on having to search from document again. I can just use level 1 predictions or extractions and then go downstream. So I create a dependency graph. Some entities depend on others, process in topological order. All entities in same level execute concurrently, asynchronously. High-level entities provide context to lower-level entities. Some observations as you work on these problems, right? You start seeing some observations, and that's out of observation. Smart chunking. We use keyword search. So what happens is that individual page tells us which entities it has, but can I even make it more narrow? Can I find sections? So the way we did it, we tried semantic, but keyword search worked decently for us. We defined all the potential names of sections, and then we tried to do fuzzy matching. And that worked. Even if it failed, we could fall back on the page, right? Like, it's not a lot of text. What we wanted was we wanted to target a specific subsection, a best case. If that didn't work, we go back to the entire page. And the entire page is also not very long, and we have a lot of money. So, decent approach. So you don't over-engineer again, right? Then we have chain of thought reasoning. We added chain of thought reasoning to every single pydantic schema that we had. It was in our base model, essentially. In the base model that I defined for pydantic classes, I put a chain of thought field. I'll tell you why later on. But we have that. It's not just for accuracy, it's also debugging. So we kind of solved it. We ran on 140,000 documents. It took a long time. We did it. Lessons. These are old lessons, 2025, last year. Let's see. LLMs are unreliable for visual structure, mostly. We spent much trying to make Claude and GPT, not Claude, sorry, typo, GPT-4V and Llama models to extract tables accurately. We were unable to figure it out. We used table transformer. That was very, very cheap. CPU inference, you don't even need GPU. No rate limit concerns, because you can control rate limit now because you are running that model. More accurate, and that's what the lesson here is, like, know when to stop prompt engineering sometimes, right? If it works, use prompt engineering, but sometimes, maybe, you can get synthetic data, maybe you can annotate a few samples, maybe. Progressive deployment is a QA. This is what I learned when I ran at this scale. I had never run it this scale, right? I was always afraid. If I run 10K documents and if it fails, I just lost like 10-20 lakh, 10-20 lakhs, right? That's like, no, that cannot happen. So this is how we did it. We started with 100 documents. We finalized schemas at this stage. So we set with domain experts. We give them, we ask them to annotate. We give them our prediction, and then we finalized or nailed down the schema at 100 documents. At 1,000 documents, we found edge cases because we had fine-tuned table transformer. We had section layout parsing logic. We found edge cases to our logic. Great. 10K, we found rate limit issues. This should have ideally been handled upfront, but we found rate limits at 10K. Don't do that. Build for rate limit from first day. And then at 80K, we ran a production scale. Each batch revealed problems that will have been catastrophic at full scale. So never, ever process your full corpus on day one. It sounds so simple, but don't make that mistake. Imagine finding a schema bug after processing 140,000 documents. That's so much money wasted. They didn't care, but I care. Rate limits are architecture constraints. So if we are playing with LLMs and some model providers, rate limits have been there since the start of APIs, right? So it's not a new thing. It's just that requests per minute or tokens per minute are less, but rate limits were already there. So build for it, right? Like AWS Bedrock has certain limits. You know how many pages you require, how many times to process, so build according to it. Use multiple models if you can. We did load balancing across multiple LLMs. We did entity-level caching so that we don't lose out or lose data and spend money and time, and rate limits, exponential backups on rate limit error status codes. So we had 250 RPM. That is nothing, right? This is like 40 concurrent calls across 4 documents and 10 pages at a time. And it took like 10 seconds or 15 seconds on average for individual pages. So that is how we came to that 4 documents, 10 pages concurrent limit. Keyboard search bit embeddings sometimes, again, I think I forgot to write that, sometimes. For semi-structured documents with predictable headers, simple fuzzy matching outperforms, or elastic sort outperforms. Use that, don't complicate it with embeddings. So match according to your document, your retrieval strategy. This is not just for this case, but also for search in general, right? Search in general has been since years. Elasticsearch has been there since years. Try to go and evaluate there as well. Don't just directly jump to embeddings. It's embeddings are not very good. And you don't know why they match certain things. They are stochastic in nature. So try to do like keyword-based or elastic-based search, which is also keyword-based. Chain of thought was our debugging infrastructure. The reasoning field isn't just for accuracy, it's for why the extraction failed. With chain of thought, we could know why they failed. It's also for compliance. If ever they have to say why LLM gave certain output, give us some reasoning behind that. You can say, hey, we have everything. It's also for context. So for dependent entities, you could send a chain of thought of higher level entities, and that's how you do it. For context also. So this is one sort of observability, but this is not build observability into abstraction from day one. Chain of thought is one way. Use LLM ops. I'll talk about it not talk about it at length, but use observability, have some langfuse or something added so that you know how much money is going, what LLM is seeing, what it is responding, everything, right? Just makes sense. Hybrid architectures win. I tried one sort, right? I just gave LLM everything and expected it to work. Didn't work. LLM for semantic understanding, custom model for visual structure, keyword matching for retrieval, pydantic for validation. No single technology solves everything. Choose the right tool for each solved problem. What will be different today? I might try vision models for both layout parsing as well as for tables. I regret this. I didn't use Bedrock's batch inference API. I don't know why. This will have saved so much money. Rate limit will not have been a problem. So please check that out, Bedrock batch inference API. We'll definitely keep instructor for structured output, even though we have structured output from individual model providers. But you have to use open source models. There's so many things. Try to use instructor. Progressive deployment, always. Prompt caching, yes, that saved us so much money. Again, keyword-based retrieval, sometimes sufficient. OK, there is a formatting issue. Sorry. So production AI isn't about the model. It's about the system. So whenever someone says building in AI, right, I think today it's not about model. Someone else created the model for you. Now your job is to create a system around the model so that it actually solves the problem. Caching, observability, both chain of thought and LLM ops. Progressive deployment, hybrid architectures, rate limit management, evaluation, human QA. Do all of this. The messy parts is where real engineering happens, at least in AI, also in software. Thank you. Let's chat during the break. You can follow me in these places. I thought if I might add Instagram, but I didn't. So yeah, thank you so much, guys.